What is going on, Crimson Tide fans? We're continuing to do our positional breakdowns this week as I am out on vacation. Went ahead and pre-filmed these videos for you guys. So I want to ask you, help me out. Go ahead and follow me over on Twitter. That's at ChrisChatSports. Every single follower that I get on Twitter, I'm sure I'm lounged out on the beach right now. I'm going to be checking my phone. Every single time I get a follower, I'm going to down a bushwhacker for you guys. So help me out. I want to have a lot of fun on vacation, so go ahead and give me a follow over on Twitter. We are breaking down Alabama's wide receiver room today, kind of some of the likely expectations, and also, same as the other videos, we are looking ahead to what Alabama also has in that 2026 recruiting class. Let's go ahead and start off. Obviously, your main guys here are going to be Germie Bernard and Ryan Williams. The rest of them are going to be a bit of a question mark. The expectations, I think, for Isaiah Horton going into this season. You got him out of the transfer portal from Miami. I think they're going to be really high. You got Jalen Hale also coming back from his injury last season. I think those expectations are relatively high. I'm not going to say extremely high like a guy like Isaiah Horton, because you don't know what coming back from that injury, what kind of player you're actually going to get from that. But I really, really like the big playability there from Jalen Hale. And then the other guys, man, Rico Scott, there's been a ton of buzz about him. Lotzeir Brooks, the freshman coming in, your big body guy in Derek Meadows. And let's not forget the former five-star in Jalen Mbakwe. And also Cole Adams, your utility guy. This wide receiver room is going to be really, really solid for Alabama this season. That's why Pro Football Focus had them ranked there in the top 10 of wide receiver rooms in college football going into next season. This is what PFF said about Alabama's wide receiver room going into next year. It said, while it didn't match Jeremiah Smith's otherworldly freshman campaign, Ryan Williams' first college season was still incredible. The former top 5 recruit is 865 receiving yards, ranked second to Smith's among FBS true freshmen last season, and second among all true freshmen over the past 3 seasons. He entered 2025 as my number 2 receiver in the country and graces the cover of EA Sports College Football 26 along with Jeremiah Smith. Incredible game. If you guys haven't gotten yet, it's really, really fun. Germie Bernard will once again be Alabama's number 2 wide receiver and was one of the 25 most valuable wideouts in the nation this past season, according to PFF's WAA. Miami transfer wide receiver Isaiah Horton rounds out the trio and placed 9th among the ACC wide receivers with 38 receiving first downs plus touchdowns this past season. And I think looking back to last year, one of the biggest things for me was the inconsistencies at wide receiver. Really, outside Ryan Williams and Germie Bernard, you didn't have another dog in the room. You talk about, the rest of those guys, Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law. Those were, these are looking at true wide receiver stats from last year. The unfortunate thing about it was you had C.J. Dupree, a tight end, Josh Cuevas, a tight end, Jam Miller, a running back, all have more receiving yards last year than you got from Kobe Prentice and Kendrick Law. Oh, and by the way, Robbie Oots also had more receiving yards last year than Kendrick Law. That should really tell you something about how inconsistent Alabama's wide receivers were. It wasn't just all on Jalen Milroe. It wasn't just all on the offensive line being inconsistent. I think the inconsistencies from those guys at wide receiver definitely played a role into why Jalen Milroe at times looked so bad last year. Some of it definitely was him, but outside of Ryan Williams and Germie Bernard, you had nobody else that you could consistently get the ball to, nobody that could be reliable for you. And, as unfortunate as it might be, some of those guys ended up hitting the transfer portal. And I say it like that because, honestly, you're probably not going to miss him. Kobe Prentice, you like the kid, but just wasn't consistent for you. Ends up going to Baylor. Kendrick Law ends up going to Kentucky. He talked about the fact that, he was banged up a lot last year. I still don't necessarily buy that because he wasn't banged up enough to be on the weekly injury report. He was never on there. So, besides one time earlier in the season, I think he did sprain his ankle and he was on there. But outside of that, injuries can't always be an excuse to why you're inconsistent. Caleb Odom ends up going to Ole Miss. Emmanuel Henderson goes to Kansas. Jaron Hamilton goes to Arizona State. That actually might be a fun fit. I'm kind of excited about Jaron Hamilton. And Amari Jefferson as well. He was from Tennessee, ends up transferring to Tennessee as well. So I want to hear from you guys down at the pinned comment of today's video. Who will lead Alabama in receiving yards in 2025? Let me know what you guys think. It could be Isaiah Horton. It could be Ryan Williams. And it also could be Germie Bernard. I think it could be either three of those guys. But make a prediction for me. Let me know who you guys think down at the pinned comment of today's video. Let's first start off with Isaiah Horton. You got him out of the transfer portal from the University of Miami. And man, when it comes to getting a legitimate wide receiver 3, I think he's going to be that guy for you. You look at that, transition from year 2 to year 3 at Miami. Man, he was really, really good. Yeah, over 600 yards receiving for him. That would have been third for Alabama last year in terms of receiving yards. So if you could get that from Isaiah Horton, again, going into his 4th season now, I think that could help you out a lot. It'll help Ty Simpson or whoever ends up being the quarterback out a lot for Alabama next season. Just having a third reliable guy that you can actually get the football to. And then, like we said earlier, Jalen Hale also coming back from that, just devastating leg injury that he suffered last year. I believe it was during the spring when he suffered that. But you look back to 2023, only had 5 receptions, but man, that big playability there for Jalen Hale is going to be something that I think Alabama is really going to be able to take advantage of. You see right there, over 29 yards per reception. Now, that number is definitely going to come down, as he continues to play and get more, targets and receptions and everything like that. But man, just being able to add another guy who's also mature as well, and I think he's going to be another guy that, is one of these leaders for Alabama next season, kind of a forgot about leader from a fan's perspective. But I think, he's going into year 3 now, I believe, with Alabama. So I do think he's going to be one of those leaders for Alabama going into next season, along with other guys like Germie Bernard and Ryan Williams. This Alabama wide receiver room, I think, is going to have more, accountability, I think, than what they've had here in the last couple of seasons. We'll continue on here in just a second, but first I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. I am rocking these Alabama swim trunks all week long down at the beach. They are on sale right now. I ended up getting them on sale. They were $50. Now they are only $30. So $20 off these nice Alabama swim trunks here. Just go to chatsports.com/Bama trunks and you can get that deal today. I'll put that link down in the comment section and the description of today's video. All right, let's look at what I'm going to end up calling the next tier of wide receivers for Alabama. You talk about a guy like last year, Cole Adams, was called your utility guy, ended up getting injured, which was really unfortunate because, he played in 7 games last year, only had 6 receptions, but, he kind of reminded me of, some of those older Alabama wide receivers. I'm really blanking on his name right here. You guys know who I'm talking about from just a couple of seasons ago, but just, when you need somebody to pick up 5 yards, Cole Adams is going to be your guy there. He's really quick. He's not overly athletic, but I think he really does rely on technique to be able to kind of get the advantage of some players. Rico Scott, 5 receptions for 60 yards last year. We remember that touchdown pass from Austin Mack to Rico Scott. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was a one-handed catch as well. He got a ton of buzz during the springtime. And then Bubba Hampton, a guy that was kind of banged up last year, only played in 3 games, but I think that ability for him is really going to play in this Kalen DeBoer offense as well. And then you talk about a guy like Jalen Mbakwe, the former 5-star, comes in the number 2 cornerback coming out of high school in 2024. I thought he played really damn good for Alabama last year on the defensive side of the ball when he did play, had an interception or 2 last year as well. I I think we kind of forget because he didn't have this massive spring or anything like that. He's learning the offensive side of the ball now, and then you got Ryan Grubb coming into the fold too. I think kind of we forget how dynamic this kid is when the football is in his hands. You look back to his senior season in high school where he ended up playing quarterback and carried the ball a lot, 148 carries for over 1,000 yards, 23 rushing touchdowns, also threw the ball for over 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns as well. That state championship game against Saraland was really epic as well. Him and Ryan Williams, if I'm not, I could definitely be wrong on this, but if my memory serves me correct, I think Jalen Mbakwe and Ryan Williams were the only two players in that state championship game that actually scored touchdowns. They had like 8 touchdowns combined or something like that for their two schools there. But he had over 280 yards in that game and 4 touchdowns as well. Jalen Mbakwe definitely could be a name to monitor at that wide receiver position. I do kind of think he's going a little bit under the radar going into his second season. So how many receptions do you guys think Jalen Mbakwe will get this year for Alabama? Let me know what you guys think. I probably don't think it's going to be, a ton just because of the sheer numbers that Alabama has in terms of bodies in that wide receiver room. We'll see what happens. Really hope it's not going to be, too low where he ends up transferring because we remember that whole debacle last offseason as well where an unnamed school came in through back channels and offered him a 6-figure deal to end up transferring Ole Miss. So really hope that doesn't end up happening. Hope he's happy with his playing time coming this season. But let me know what you guys think. How many receptions will Jalen Mbakwe get in 2025? And then 2 more wide receivers that Alabama got in their 2025 recruiting class as well. Lotzeir Brooks and Derek Meadows. If you guys remember, Derek Meadows was committed to LSU for the longest time and then ended up on signing day flipping to Alabama. You talk about the body size from him. You're pretty much just replacing Caleb Odom there in terms of body size. And then Lotzeir Brooks, man, he's going to be your small king, I think, going into next season. Him and Rico Scott, I think that's going to be a dynamic duo of, smaller wide receivers. I think Rico Scott's still around like 5'11", 6'1", somewhere around there. He is a little bit bigger, but Lotzeir Brooks just last season was, he was either unranked or an extremely low-ranked 3-star. Ends up, Alabama offers him. He ends up, pretty much immediately commits. He only goes to like 1 camp at Alabama and just, loves it, loves Nick Saban. And, it really does say a lot that these guys committed, or at least they were offered by Nick Saban. And, a guy like Lotzeir Brooks ends up staying with this Alabama coaching staff as well. Then you go to the 2026 recruiting class. You have Owen Cable, Brian Williams Jr., and the 5-star Cedarian Morgan. I think Cedarian Morgan's going to be a guy that ends up coming in his freshman season and immediately making an impact. 6'5", 210 pounds, a big body guy. He's not just tall, he's thick as well. And then Brian Williams Jr., 6'4", 185 pounds. So, those two guys a little bit lower ranked, but kind of the same deal with, your running back and Germie Bernard is, you got to rely on this Alabama coaching staff to be able to evaluate, consistently and correctly on some of these lower ranked guys because you got to be able to make the money work. You get your 5-star in Cedarian Morgan, and then you get 2 other guys in Owen Cable and Brian Williams Jr. that this Alabama coaching staff really does like, and they think they have high upside with those guys.